There's Paul Glantz.
There's Paul Glantz.
Here he is. Well,
You got a guy named Stuart Gold, that's a bankruptcy attorney. You have Bobby Levin, who's a public adjuster, insurance guy.
Hey, Bobby.
hey Paul, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
You have Kevin Adelson, who is the IT guy in the house.
Good to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And then you have Dr. Justin Trivax, who's an interventional cardiologist. I have to say that right. Not just a cardiologist. And he also had the coronavirus. He's okay. And he's a triathlete.
Good afternoon, doctor.
Hey, Paul, how are you?
Good. I think I had it too, but I got over it.
Did you get diagnosed?
Did not get diagnosed. Went through, my wife and I went to the Cayman Islands for vacation in late January, got back mid-February. And within 3 days, I was really ill. Thinking, it was a head cold, it was, virus. And it hung on for a couple of weeks, but, eventually went away. So obviously, I don't know if I had it or not yet. I think the antigen test, you could tell us if they're any good. But when a reliable one becomes available, I'd be happy to take it.
Yeah, I had an antibody test done around 3 weeks after I tested positive with my nasal pharyngeal test, and it was negative. This was the serology test at Beaumont, so they're not that good.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
How about if you do the finger prick one?
So the finger prick one's a little different because it measures two different antibodies. One is an IgM and one is an IgG. An IgM is a sign of an acute infection. An IgG is a sign that you've been infected at some point. So at Beaumont, they're only checking IgG. So if I had my IgM checked, it would have been positive. But IgM confers no immunity. So they're not doing it because it means nothing to healthcare workers. So it's a little.
Are you feeling better, Paul, though? You're good?
I feel fine, yeah. Within 2 weeks, I was largely back to all my regular activities.
You mean like staying?
Pardon me?
Staying home.
Yeah, like staying home. Precisely. That's that activity.
All right, so how this works, we were going to have Melanie from the BBB who says hello, but instead of having two guests, we're going to just do one at a time. So Melanie's going to go on at 6:30. So we'll be with you for about a half hour. So we'll start off with an intro. And I say it right, it's Glantz, right?
Glance. Just like glancing at a picture. Glance.
Glantz, okay, all right. Well, let me just modify my phonetics there. Okay, so Paul Glantz, president of Emagine Entertainment, correct?
I'm actually the chairman these days. I found a competent CEO to run the business, so I fired myself.
Got it.
Smart.
Okay.
Smart man.
Modify Glantz as take a glance and president to chairman. I'm glad I'm asking. And then I'll just do a quick little intro. And you're, a large movie theater entrepreneur. It's, casual YouTube type video. But is that the best way to give you the quick intro?
Yeah, I would say we're a prominent regional player in the movie theater business. We're in the top 20 exhibitors in the country.
In the top 20 in the country?
Yes.
His video just went.
Yeah, my internet connection is unstable, so sometimes you lose my image.
I could help you with that, Paul.
All right, so what'll happen is I'll do a quick intro, and then we try and have some questions that we're going to bounce. They'll all be bounced directly to you, okay? So I'll start with an intro, and then I'll pass it off in no particular order, although we do have an order. But I'll give it to Stuart first. He'll ask a question. He'll pass it on to the next guy, and so forth and so on, and then we'll close out about a half hour or so, okay?
Terrific. Glad to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Here we go. Kevin, we're good? Okay. Welcome once again to the CRT, the real deal, the Corona Resource Team. And here we are with the usual crew, Stuart Gold, bankruptcy attorney extraordinaire, trustee. You know the routine. He's saying hello. How are you? By the way, it's on a Sunday, hanging out. Here we are, about to be in 5 or 6 weeks of quarantine. Let's say hello to the famous Bobby Levin public adjuster extraordinaire who's taking care of billions and billions of dollars, billions of dollar Bobby. Hello once again.
How are you?
We're doing great. We also have a world famous IT consultant with us, Kevin, MobileIt in the top 100 in the country. Kevin, backward hat wearing, is in the house, MobileIt.
Hello, thank you for having me, Lawrence.
And he's clean shaven once again. And moving right on to another gentleman who apparently is not a member of the Dollar Shave Club, we have Dr. Justin Trivax is in the house. There he is.
He looks good in a beard, though, I think.
There, absolutely. Listen, apparently Stuart, myself, and Bobby, and also our guest, shave. But you two, you guys have those grooming trimmers, right?
Yeah.
We're not here to talk about hygiene or our look, but the baseball hat look is because probably no one's got a haircut in a while. But let's move into why we're here today. We thought that as opposed to what we had was a police chief, we had the president of the Michigan Association of CPAs, we had a state representative, Ryan Berman. We have had a nice round of people, including the president of a bank. We now thought we would go to something a little bit more light, if you will. And who better than to take your mind off of the world? But when you need to just sometimes dial out, well, what do? You go see a movie. I'm always a big movie guy. I always want to go see a movie. And through a friend of a friend, I was able to get a hold of Paul Glantz, like take a glance. So I want to make sure that I pronounce that right. And by the way, he's no longer the president of Emagine Entertainment. He's the chairman of the board of Emagine Entertainment. Paul, welcome. And we understand that you weren't feeling so hot back in January. We were talking before we sort of went live with this, but you're back to feeling great now, right, Paul?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lawrence. It's in fact correct. When I got back from a trip to the Cayman Islands with my wife in mid-February, within 3 days, I was really down and out. I had a terrible headache and fever, body aches, you name it. Thought it was just, a head cold, and carried on, and eventually it seemed to make its way out of my body. So I'm in pretty good shape as you can be these days.
Well, that's great. And we want to hear what's going on in the movie industry. And I'm going to pass it off to Stuart first, but also you're a CPA by trade when you and I talked a few days ago. So many people don't know that you have your comma CPA. So Paul Glantz, comma CPA, comma chairman in no particular order. And you were a Wayne State grad, did a little bit of recon on Paul, right? So there you go, local guy. And live now in the great city of Lake Angeles, by the way, right?
Very happy to be here. It's a very idyllic setting here.
Well, and thanks for coming on The Real Deal. So we're going to be asking you some questions about what's the real deal in your world. And before I pass it off to Stuart, I was very much looking forward to the new Top Gun movie coming out. You're aware of the name, what the real name is of that new movie, right?
Yes.
What's it called? What's that?
Is it Maverick, something along those lines?
It is. So if I can tilt my screen here, I have a little surprise.
Oh!
Can we see that?
That's good. That's good.
In your honor, Paul, we'll talk about that another time. Why and how I have one of these Maverick shirts. But we'll skip over that for a second. Looking forward to being able to go to the movie and have some popcorn. We're going to toss it over to Stuart Gold to shoot some questions your way about your entertainment world and what you think things are going to be looking like. Stuart, It's all yours.
Paul, I'm used to seeing you on the big screen when I go to your theaters. You're so small today. What's going on?
It's a little teeny weeny Paulie today.
Well, when are we going to get to see you again? I read where they're moving the blockbusters, the summer blockbusters are being moved. I think the Maverick movie's being moved to, the end of the year. Mulan might be coming out maybe in July. What's happening in the industry? When can we go back to the movies?
There's, of course, plenty of discussion going on within our trade organization. There's plenty of discussion among government officials. But I think that the one reality that we're going to be grounded in is that until we've got compelling feature-length new product to be able to put on the screen, we probably won't draw much in the way of business. And so there are some of us who think if you open up and you don't have anybody really there, you lose more money than you're even losing being closed now. So there's some discussion. Just yesterday, AMC said that they weren't going to open until the middle of summer. Cinemark quickly followed suit by saying they agreed. In our case, the first film to really open of any note is Tenet, a Christopher Nolan film, on July 17th. And then we've got the live action version of Mulan on July 24th. Those would be pictures I think you could draw a crowd. But if we're allowed to open earlier, and some of my industry brethren value this, they think the idea is to get back open around June 1st with the idea of being giving people an opportunity to acclimate back to going out to the movies and so forth. And so a lot of it will ultimately be beyond my control. But like most business people, we'll roll with the punches. And if we're allowed to open, we probably will. And we'll try to find a way to manage our labor costs while ensuring that our guests feel comfortable as well.
Well, that's certainly exciting. If we can at least get you into July, even that's not too far off. So hopefully we'll get to that point. I know some of the movie theaters, I think in Georgia, might be opening up soon, in Tennessee. We'll see how that plays out, I guess, in the news as well for your industry.
If I want to talk about an ugly scenario, it would be, some kind of wrongful assertion that movie theaters are a place where you somehow are more exposed than you would be elsewhere. And so many in our industry believe there's actually a downside to opening this early, that we could become a scapegoat if there's some kind of an increase in the curve. So, again, I don't think there's any absolute clarity on this, and only time will tell.
So from the bankruptcy angle, we don't want to see you in my office, of course. Are you getting any relief from the lenders and the landlords at this point?
Well, thanks. I'll tell you what, our banks have been absolutely terrific. We do business with three banks right now. Each and every one of them proactively came to us and said, we're going to defer interest, we're going to waive your principal payment requirements, we're going to ignore your covenants. And so obviously that was greatly valued and greatly appreciated. So we're really in good shape there. I would say that the most challenging discourse that we've had largely has been with our landlords. And, in fairness, I'll tell you that the leases don't really provide for an event of this nature. And so our landlords in most cases are looking at us going, well, pay us. and they're not entirely wrong, of course, in demanding payment. So we're having a dialogue with them at this point in time, and we're endeavoring to share with them that they're better off having us as a viable long-term tenant than squeezing us very tightly at this point in time. But I've got to tell you that in all candor, we went into this circumstance in a lot better shape than many of our industry colleagues. We had managed the business very conservatively. We had not run our cash down to low limits. And so we've had the means to be able to satisfy all of our obligations in the ordinary course of business. And with the additional relief that our banks have provided us, we're probably good for another, I hate to tell you, but 4 or 5 months. I hope it doesn't go that way for sure. But that's probably what happens when you've got a CPA at the helm, right, Lawrence?
There you go.
We manage conservatively.
That's great to hear.
What I say is we plan for death and settle for serious illness.
I'm going to flip it over to our IT guy, Kevin. Oh,
Well, thank you, Stuart. And there he goes. So wait for him to come back.
It's your turn.
Yeah.
But although Kevin, you did, he did acknowledge, Paul, that he was having some internet challenges location-wise. And actually, you and I were talking about that until he comes back live. You were mentioning about a hotspot thing. There he goes.
Yeah, there he is. Yeah. Hey, Paul, welcome back.
Thanks,
All right.
Kevin.
All right.
Appreciate it.
You should
wanna
call
make a
me.
house call,
Yeah, well, I
this is an
can
essential
virtually help
service.
you.
I need you to come out and fix my internet.
Well, if you
Right.
deem yourself an essential business, I can then, work something out with you.
I think I'm pretty essential. What do you think?
All right, I agree. I mean, I love your product. I
Thank
think
you.
very essential. So, in regards to IT, where do you see the industry going? I mean, let's say this didn't happen, and where was it heading in your opinion? And now that we're in this predicament, and it's likely not going away anytime soon, where do you see technology helping your business, or where do you see it evolving as far as IT goes?
We've embraced technology for quite some time now. In fact, it's not well known, but Emagine was actually the first chain in the world to go to all digital cinema. And that dates back to 2005 when we signed our deal. We had 46 screens at the time. And we were the first to deploy all digital projectors. At the time, we had to continue to have analog projectors because not all the product was available digitally. But I would tell you, like most businesses, we've done some things right, and we've stubbed our toe a few times with some of our technology. Our industry, I would say, is largely beholden to one or two major players who really have a lock on the functionality necessary to run the enterprise. And while when I got in the business, going back to 1989, there wasn't a computer to be found. Of course, as you could well imagine, everything is computerized these days.
Right.
But I think in terms of the future, it's got to be mobile ticketing, mobile concession purchasing. In fact, one of the things that I'm really high on is to ensure that we can get our mobile apps to really work optimally. And I believe that the ultimate customer service deliverable would be to allow you to buy your tickets on your phone, choose your seats, and then concurrently identify the concession products that you would like when you come to the show. Then, using some sort of geofencing, we would know, using location services, if you arrive, and then we would send you a text. Would you like your food delivered to your seat now, or would you like it, or indicate how many minutes? That's sort of my aspirational goal for the guest experience once we're back in business. In the meantime, again, talking about vendors have been very good to us. We need a lot of broadband capability because of the ticketing aspect of our business, and you're constantly querying the database when folks are shopping for tickets. And so our vendor that provides our internet connectivity was very gracious in allowing us to dial it way down at a much lower price during this period of time. Now, by the way, I think it's all being used in different environments these days. I don't doubt that the internet traffic isn't up dramatically with what's going on.
Yeah.
But I see it as mobile technology. That's where I think it's going. And ultimately, the other aspect that I'm really high on these days is to do better with my data. And that is not to spam our guests, but to use information, much like Amazon does, to be able to say to our guests once a week, we've got this film coming out based on films that you've enjoyed in the past. We think that you might like this one too. And so I think those are my two largest IT initiatives in the near term. And so I'd be curious if you think I'm on the right track or if I'm going sideways here.
I think it's great.
No, I think you are on the right track. I'm curious to see how virtual reality is going to play into it. If the social distancing still is a concern as time goes on, I'm curious to see how the industry will get creative with virtual reality and branded virtual reality setups for home users, so you can still get your brand recognized and provide the almost like your own Netflix, but for Emagine and
Wow.
Something like that. Yeah, I mean, it's an idea.
That's fascinating. Right now, our licensing agreements do not provide for us to be able to show film typically outside of our venue. So it'll take some adjustments there.
Yeah, but I mean, that could be another stream down the road.
But one of the things I want to touch on, since you brought up social distancing, is that I think that we introduced social distancing before the term was even coined by going to powered reclining chairs. when we installed power reclining chairs, we lost 2/3 of our seat count. So to a large degree, I want to make sure that when our governmental officials begin dictating rules on what they consider safe, best practices, things of that nature, they realize these nuances. Because if I'm sitting in, AMC Great Lakes Crossing, I'm in 42-inch row spacing and a 20-inch seat. It's about, it's less than half of the amount of square footage that we offer a guest in one of our venues today. So that's actually been a very high priority for me, is making sure that our public officials are hearing from folks like me saying, wait a minute, let's be very careful not to strike with a blunt instrument here. Folks are going to feel more safe, more secure in Emagine theaters because they already have more space between them.
Yeah,
Right.
very good point.
Right.
And thank you for that great information. I appreciate it. And over to Bobby.
Well, thank you. Hey, Paul. Nice to see you again.
Thanks, Bobby.
The movie business, they've had movies that were gonna come out, and they didn't. And obviously, there's significant cost without any revenue. There's movies that are being made that were going to come out in the normal course of doing business. Have the studios offered any kind of financial relief to your part of the industry?
No. I was on the phone for almost an hour yesterday with my film buyer out in LA.
Mhm.
And, some exhibitors actually took the point of view that they weren't going to pay the studios the royalties that were owed to them.
Wow.
And that's candidly sort of a recipe for disaster, because you want to talk about being a client of Stuart's pretty soon, having a movie theater with no product. And I can assure you that before those exhibitors will have film again, they will have fully paid their film bills that were owing. So no, they're really a lousy creditor, the studios. They like to be paid. And in fairness to them, think about the Disney company. There's a tremendously valuable corporation, but they've been hit from all directions. Theme parks, cruise ships, movie theaters. I mean, they've gotten it from every which way from Sunday, because they're throughout the hospitality business. So I'm really not looking for relief from those folks. There is some discussion about whether or not, if business is slower going forward, will they have to consider giving us more lenient film terms? When I say terms, I'm talking about the percentage that we pay them.
Right.
And right now, on average, it turns out to be about 59, 60%. But in other parts of the world, it's typically more like 40 to 50%. So the studios may find that in order to have a healthy ecosystem for theaters, they might have to adjust their royalty percentage. Concurrently, to pursue that path introduces the concept of them saying, well, why do we need you at all? We can put it on our own streaming channel and get 80% of the revenue, So I want to be very cautious about how we go about pursuing that type of approach going forward.
So what can the moviegoer expect? Once everything opens up, with all these losses and costs that are continuing, can the moviegoer expect higher prices?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
No, I don't think we have any pricing power. If anything, I'd be looking to offer consumers a better value, because many consumers are feeling less wealthy than they did before the stock market downturn took effect and before they lost their jobs and so forth. So I if anything, I would bet it's going the other direction. And, we did really well, and I'm not gloating over this, but we did really well during the economic downturn of the 08, 09 time period. Hollywood dealt us a good hand during that period of time. But I think that the concept of a little escapism, a little bit of affordable out-of-home entertainment really comes in handy during challenging times. And so I think it's going to be a fascinating time to see who's coming back to the movies and who's not. You know, in my case, I'm probably not as concerned because we're expecting most people to be wearing masks, if not requiring folks to be wearing masks. And under those circumstances, I think we should ask Dr. Justin here if he agrees. But if you're wearing a mask, except when you're eating your popcorn, I'm not sure you're really in much of a position to infect people around you. But I'm, you know, the purpose of moviegoing is that collective experience. And I think there are a lot of folks who pine for that collective experience. They want to go, you know, be out and about. They want to be part of the world again. And then there are folks that I think are just more timid, more concerned about contracting the virus. So we're going to have a world that's divided on other bases besides politics going forward, I would say.
Well, it's interesting that you referred over to Justin because I was just about to refer over to Justin. So,
Yeah, I appreciate this.
Justin, take it away.
This is fascinating because, you know, when I've heard all these different things from a variety of my patients now with this explosion of telemedicine. I'm talking to more and more people and I'm hearing their horror stories about being closed, right? The owners of the hair salons, personal trainers, the restaurateurs, the store owners, et cetera, even other doctors. Other doctors are freaking out right now. They can't wait to get back into the office. And I've noticed two themes, and one you just mentioned, and the other one Bobby just mentioned. So one that was just mentioned is these owners and these really, really smart people have come up with these fantastic ideas, right? The mobile and the IT advancements and enhancements of the experiences. The problem is that we're also talking about some people having bankruptcy issues. So when and where will those finances when will they become available is, I think, the big question, because now we've had time to think about things, but when is it going to become available? That's number one interesting point. Secondly, is everyone who owns a business or wants to get out there saying, we have to open, we have to open, we have to open, but how is that really going to look for each business? And no one thinks about it, right? They just said, let me open my doors again. So what can we imagine? You see that, Kevin, how I use that? What can
That was good. That was good.
Well done.
Bit
Smooth.
idea of what this will look like. And I agree with you completely. It's going to be really, really hard to contract coronavirus, COVID-19, certainly because a lot of us will have immunoglobulins or immunity to it. And people are going to be wearing face coverings. So the chance of you really getting it is going to be low. On the flip side, it's the perception, right? We want everyone to feel safe in going to a movie for that experience. Do you have any idea yet, or has there been meeting about it with amongst your partners about really how that's going to look?
Yeah, I think we're contemplating having a greeter and having hand sanitizer at the door and asking folks to please, use some hand sanitizer after they come in through the doors. And then we're going to offer them masks. We're in the process of buying hundreds of thousands of masks as we speak. And you can well imagine they're hard to come by and they're not inexpensive. But again, we want to do that out of an abundance of caution. Again, I think there are those of us who think that having done that, what else are we going to do? And that's kind of the camp I fall into. But I do know that there are folks that will continue to have some trepidation. And it'll just really become a question of, over time, do more people become emboldened to believe they can be in public settings without jeopardizing their health? I'm going to be talking to my industry colleagues again this week about, hey guys, let's make sure that we're not the cause of people staying home, because when you've got reclining chairs and when you've got all of your food service handling personnel wearing masks and gloves and so forth, I think the risk of passing that illness goes down very dramatically. And I think if we, I would protect anyone's right to stay home, honestly. And I think maybe the vulnerable population should continue to perhaps wait it out. If you're really up in age or you've got underlying health issues, maybe public settings aren't the best place for you. But, the vast majority of our demographics are younger people. And we could also have, just like they've done at grocery stores, we could have special shows for seniors who are concerned about not being exposed to younger people as well.
So real quick, Justin, I'm sorry, had a quick question before my train of thought derails. What about having less people in the theater? Is that a possibility? That's my first question. The second is, as you all heard of, there's UV technology out, and they're starting to get a lot of research on, Justin, you may be able to touch on this, on the effects of UV light on killing the virus. Now, let's say that is an effective way. Potentially, you could advertise that you have a UV scanner that scans you as you come in, or you're treating the seats with UV and disinfectant or things like that. I didn't know if you had any of those discussions.
Yeah, in fact, that's fascinating. I actually made a small angel investment in a company called Violet Protection. And they have products that are designed to eradicate virus through the application of ultraviolet light. We think it would be cumbersome to do it in our auditoriums because you've got to get the light down lower and closer to the chairs.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think we have an option that's similar in nature in that, and even before there were, the shutdown, we went out and bought these disinfectant bombs. And it's essentially like a fogger, if you will. And I was approached yesterday by a gentleman who said, we can come in and fog your auditoriums every night. And if I could actually ascertain that would be efficacious, then count me in. We'll spend the money to, again, with the idea of encouraging and giving people more assurances that we're doing everything possible to make it safe for them to come back.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Those ideas are great. The problem is we just don't know what's effective or not. But what we're trying to do in our hospitals, in our offices, we want to be known, and I'm sure you will too, as the cleanest damn office in the city, right? The cleanest place to get entertainment at night, right? You want to be known, so whatever it is, it's worth the investment. But I'm not the money guy on here. Lawrence, what do you think? You going to see Maverick?
I can't wait to go see Maverick. We were going to have a little charity event for it, which was going to be in June, and now we'll push it out. But I'll tell you, Paul, absolutely fascinating hearing you talk about the industry, because to me, I'm sure everyone, I love nothing more than going to dinner in the movies. I'm a movie guy. I love movies. I watch movies when I fly once a week down to my Florida office, which I haven't been to in a while. I love movies. I'm an action movie guy. So if you're tracking my algorithms like you would on Amazon, mine's going to be action movie, Fast and Furious movie, Jason Statham. I mean, you name it, I'm an action movie guy. But I miss it. And I miss going to the movies. I enjoy a good movie and some popcorn to chew on. And, I don't know if I was texting Justin in between these, when you go and get your popcorn and there's some spillage of the popcorn, you pick up the piece of popcorn. Who knows, is it going to be bring your own popcorn anymore? You're not going to allow outside food in there, but there's so many unknowns in the equation, but absolutely fascinating what you had to say about it. And I think everyone out there in America loves getting away from reality, watching a movie, whether it's action, whether it's the ones that'll make you teary-eyed, whether it's the comedies, just the industry in general. I think society is missing those things. So I think there will be some changes perhaps on what your licensing agreement does give you, but thank you very much for coming on. Just an absolute pleasure to have you. I can only imagine what it's going to look like when you reopen, whether that's in a month or 2 or 3 down the road, but you have just tremendous ideas. You're a class act. We appreciate the time coming on today, and certainly we'll keep in touch. And thanks again for coming on. Here we are wrapping up with Paul Glantz.